in front of a microphone. I apologize. All right, we are live. Welcome to the BG Reynolds Symposiums. I am Blair of BG Reynolds. This is our symposium on starting your small Tiki business. I have a syrups business, and these are my fellow panelists. If you'd like to introduce yourselves and what you do.
Hello, my name is Tiki Tony. I'm an artist.
My name is Brandon Giraldus. I do geeky tikis.
My name is Jonathan Chaffin. I'm an artist with Horror and Clay and Mug Crate.
Woo! Do we have any other entrepreneurs here in the audience? People who started their own business, or so you're all interested and curious about it? Excellent. So what I wanted to do is talk today about kind of the realities of starting a Tiki business. We've all got fairly established businesses, whether through online Kickstarters, retail sales, vending at events like TikiCon, Tiki Oasis, and kind of talk about the realities of starting your own business, building it from your passion, and kind of the challenges that we face as we go along. But I'd like to talk about first where we got started. Jonathan, would you like to start us on how did you start Horror in Clay? Horror in Clay.
Horror in Clay. Well, about 6 years ago, I collect things. I collect everything, but I collect Tiki stuff and horror props and paraphernalia. And so any space that has been designated mine in my house is always crammed full and looks kind of like the Addams Family. So when my daughter was born, I was working a swing shift, so I spent a lot of time alone because everybody was exhausted. So I designed, well, okay, so if this room was a tiki bar like I'd like it to be, what would my mug look like? What would my swizzle stick, coaster, all the things that we love to collect? And I designed my first mug, and a friend of mine's like, oh, well, you gotta, I'd like to buy that. You should see if anybody wants to. And I'm a graphic designer by trade, so I had helped friends of mine do Kickstarters. This was sort of when they were starting out. So I was familiar with the platform. I was like, oh, yeah, sure, I'll give it a try. And it turns out my first mug was very successful. And people were
What
asking,
mug was that?
That was the Cthulhu Tiki mug from Horror and Clay.
Hey.
And the collection that goes with it. And people immediately were like, well, what's the next one? And then what's the next one? And so I'm, I think 9 next ones deep.
Including the deep ones.
Including the deep ones. So it sort of grew from that. It's just, learn as I go and fail and succeed and pick up and see what I can do.
Brandon Giraldez, talk about your start into geeky tikis.
I come from the toy industry, so I made action figures and bobbleheads and you name it for a lot of major toy companies, and then ripped the Band-Aid off and started my own business in 2013. And started out making beer steins for Star Wars and Game of Thrones and Doctor Who, and wanted to do something. I wanted to mesh my love for Tiki with geeky, and that's how Geeky Tikis was born. So it's my toy company. I was doing Anchorman action figures. I was doing beer steins. I was doing bobbleheads. My toy company is now officially just a Tiki. Some people call it Tiki. But I'm doing pop culture Tiki mugs, and that's my business now, full time. So.
The niche found itself. Through
We carved out a very cool little area, and I just kind of do the licensed properties that I'm into, and I hope people like it as much as I do. And, it's caught on. So we started with Star Wars, and we kind of went from there.
So when is the All in the Family and Mod Tiki
We're
Bugs?
pushing for Gilligan's. We're pushing hard for.
Can you
Gilligan's
imagine
Island.
Golden Girls?
Yeah.
Little Sophia shot glass.
It's, honestly, Disney approached us to do Golden Girls, and it's like everybody wants so much money for these licenses, and I was like, oh, how many people are going to buy a Golden Girls Tiki? And so we kind of put that one. All right. Maybe we'll rethink that one.
All right, Brendan. Well, thank you for being a friend. So, Tony, let's talk about your start in Tiki, in the Tiki world.
So when I was 18, I don't know what, I just had the bug for Tiki. I started collecting vintage Hawaiian shirts. This was 1997, and I couldn't find anything. Internet was not so good back then, and so I just started carving my own. I didn't know what really they looked like. I knew a little bit from the Tiki room. Well, that was about an hour and a half away. So I started making little driftwood Tiki necklaces, carving them like crazy, and then I would give them to friends. And then I made bigger ones out of palm trees, and I wanted them just for my backyard. And then friends of friends would buy them. And I'm like, oh, gotta make another one. So just keep making them for myself, and then they would sell from the yard. And then it just kind of turned into a business from there. But it took a long time. I mean, I was going to school to be a teacher, so I was a teacher for 5 years. Lost that, but always doing nights and weekends Tiki stuff because it was my obsession. And then I was a pool guy the next 5 years because I couldn't find another teaching job. And then it was until December, basically, when I started selling stuff on my website, that made it possible to do it full time.
Amen.
So, yeah. It feels good. It feels good. So 18 long years, and then on the 19th year, you can do it full time. It's easy.
Yeah.
And he's no longer giving those necklaces away, I don't think.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure I still have not only my first Tiki Tony necklace, I still have the wall piece. Tiki Tony had put out a blast on Tiki Central asking for music for an exhibition.
2002. Yeah.
God.
Yeah, when I was in college.
How long have we been doing this?
Yeah,
Oh gosh.
I know.
And I sent him a CD of Martin Denny music and such. So
Yeah.
God,
Yeah.
wow, I have.
I couldn't
long
believe
time,
how
yeah.
long ago that was.
Wow. And for myself, I have been interested in Tiki since the first sip of this first sip of a coconut. You could say it was because I was stung by a Portuguese man o' war on the beaches of Hawaii when I was 1 year old, something like that. My memory is not great, probably because of that, as well as many, many, many trips to the Enchanted Tiki Room where I could still hear the clacking of the birds and flowers. Later in life, I got into an interest in vintage cocktails, particularly through Ted Hayes' book, Vintage Spirits and Lost Cocktails, which was quickly followed by the Beach Bum Berry books. And once I got not only a taste of a great cocktail, but the sense of ambiance, the clothing, the music, this was more than just it's something in a glass. This was a place to be, an experience. I started taking that into my bartending positions. And of course, you didn't have access to anything back then. We had Tarani, the finest was Tarani Orgeat or finest called passion fruit. Which isn't necessarily the finest stuff, but back then that's all you had. So everything I made was house made. Everything I had was, to get falernum, which was 10 years from being on the market with velvet falernum. You had to, zest your own lime peels, and you had to do this. You didn't have a choice like you do today. And years into my bartending career, I was talking with an editor for Imbibe magazine, and she said, "I love these recipes we publish, and I'm so curious to make them, but they always come with these damn sub recipes. You got to make 3 different things before you make the cocktail." And what if the cocktail's no good? You don't know if you made it right. So I thought, you know what? Someone should solve this. Bing! Plus, I was getting tired of scratch making my own syrups every freaking week, because as a professional bartender, you go through stuff a lot faster than at home. So I approached a co-packer, somebody who produces syrups for you. They provide the labor in the kitchen. And started making what was then Trader Tiki's syrups. And then Trader Vic said, maybe you shouldn't call it Trader Tiki's. So B.G. Reynolds came to exist. I started the line with some Orgeat, cinnamon, Don's mix, and vanilla syrup. And since then, it has expanded into 14 different mixers. I have moved production facilities from 40 gallons at a time to 300 gallons in a batch several times a day. I do business at the Disney parks and resorts, and that continues to expand. And it's, yeah, and yet, it is not yet full-time, believe it or not. Oh, it's a full-time, but it's not the only gig. So that's why I wanted to bring this panel, is to show, you know, kind of the various levels, the various things that we've all done to get into Tiki. In fact, I followed Jonathan's path for a new project. One of the things about running a business is the intense capital costs. It really does take money to make money. You can't just, you know, even to grow stuff out of the ground, you got to have seed, water, and nutrients first. But one of the things that Jonathan helped me with was running a Kickstarter. Tell me about what brought you to Kickstarter and kind of your experience with that.
Well, I mentioned that I helped a friend of mine with some graphics, and what she was working on was an art project for something like Burning Man. And she wanted some she was trying to raise collateral to build a giant merry-go-round in the woods there. But she wanted to have
That sounds cool.
she wanted to have some things to give people who wouldn't be able to attend the event. She wanted to be able to give them patches and things to enjoy. And so I kind of watched her. You know, she hit her goal. What was that? I think she was trying to raise $1,200. I mean, it was
To build a merry-go-round?
yeah, I mean, it was a murder-go-round, more right.
You don't actually sit on the horses. It's more of a looks.
It's more of a, yeah, no, there were exposed bolts, and we had to put safety yams on them to keep people from gouging themselves terribly.
Stabbing go round.
But so it was kind of fascinating though, because what I found, I mean, I'm from a marketing background, but this was pretty new to me. People were like, I want to be part of the journey. Like, here's $5, here's $20 or something, just because this is an absurd thing that may or may not happen, and I want to see how it goes. And I have found that people really enjoy taking those journeys with you if you're willing to put yourself out there and risk.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Yeah, I found that with my, so I had a Kickstarter recently. Do I have any backers in here?
Oh, yeah.
Woo! Your rewards will be coming. Eventually. I feel bad for the people who spent the most will have to wait the longest because they get the coolest pledge rewards. It'll take a while. I had a Kickstarter recently, and yeah, that's, you know, for business reasons, so often we have to sink capital in. We have to sink, you know, $10,000. I have to put $10,000 into the production of a new syrup before I see $1 back.
Yep.
And Kickstarter allows me to design and develop and kind of test the market and see if I've got anything. Luckily, I knew within the first 3.5 hours, kaboom, that the Kickstarter was going to be a success. And I've definitely found, like you say, people like following you on the journey, and people love updates, and I get questions and comments. I can't walk through this hall without finding somebody that says, hey, I'm a backer, I'm so excited. And they're okay with waiting because they feel like they're a part of it. They've helped significantly. Yeah, and you're on Kickstarter like 9 now with the Pallid Mask?
No, but I think I've done 5 or 4 and a go. What's the other one? We did Mug Crate through Indiegogo, just to sort of test the waters and see how that went.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. Once you have, one of the things is when you do Kickstarters, you've got your backers, and you are allowed to keep talking to those same people.
Yeah, reselling it.
Yeah, yeah. So it becomes this rolling thing, and people that do one Kickstarter right have a reputation for doing the Kickstarter well, and then it starts to build on itself. And people, there are just classes of people that follow Kickstarters, which is fun.
Yeah, that's a great thing too about it is I've expanded my audience so much. You know, it's they give you little charts and statistics that say how many come from outside referrals, how many come from your mailing list, and how many people came from just browsing Kickstarter.
Right.
And it's such a great way to expand the audience. You know, but we were talking. I think it's a great way to get started in your Tiki business because it's kind of like you can put your dream out there, and then see who wants to follow along. But like we were talking about with kind of intensive capital and such, something that's interesting. You know, we've done kind of like homebrewed stuff, and you developed your own brand, and with Brandon, with your stuff.
little different.
It's a little different, but speaking about reaching out to a wider audience.
Yeah.
Just talking about, I'm curious, what brought you to licensing and developing Tiki mugs? And how, what was your first license acquisition like?
Well, I started with the Tikis. The first licensed product I did was Star Wars.
Mhm.
But at that time, I couldn't afford my own Disney license.
Oh, it's just like, what, $5, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, yeah, it's a very expensive license. It's, I wasn't established within that housewares.
Mhm.
So I was in the toy industry. I had my first license when I got my own job, when I started my own business, was Anchorman. It was for the sequel. I did the original product, which was well received. The sequel, not so great. And then I designed the Star Wars mugs, and I approached previous people that I had sold product to that had a Star Wars license. So I said, "Oh, you're making Darth Vader mugs. Check out what I've got." And I had my trademark. I had the name. I had the designs. They shared it with Lucas. Lucas signed off on it, which was crazy. I didn't think they would. They didn't sign off on Darth Vader initially. So we signed off on it. We did a partnership between Tiki, who's now owned by GameStop, and I really proved my business through them. So they sold it. It did really, really well. And then that went on to like a Series 2, and we did the Jabba the Hutt and all these exclusives. And really, I kind of built the business there. And then I went out and got my own licenses, Marvel and DC and Flintstones and Cereal Monsters we're doing now. And
Yes.
Scooby-Doo. I'm doing a lot of retro brands right now, which I'm really passionate about. Horror, some horror stuff. Jason, Freddy, that sort of thing. What else we got? Yeah, so it's turned into. At first, I had to work with other people, and then once we got some legs in the business and kind of proved it out, we went out and got our own licenses, and now everything's direct. So.
I'm curious, what's the challenge of getting a license? So if somebody's, you're watching, cruising through, I don't know what people watch on TV, because I have way too many children watch TV, but, you're cruising through the channels and you see, oh, there's going to be a Knight Rider marathon.
Yeah.
And you think, oh, shit, that would be a great Tiki mug. What's the, what
Well,
do
the
you
lucky
do?
thing, I mean, my background was in toys,
Mhm.
so my job was license toys. So I knew everybody at Universal, everybody at Warner Brothers, everybody at Disney. I knew them all
Mhm.
from working in the toy industry. And then when I started my own, that's one of the reasons I started my own business, because I had all those relationships.
Mhm.
So it was easier for me to say, hey, typically it's hard to just call Universal Studios or Warner Brothers and be like, hey, I want to make some Tiki mugs. Can I get a meeting? And it could be a little challenging, but I had those relationships already built. So I kind of built my credibility within the business when I worked for somebody else. And then once I started my own business, I said, hey, remember when I did this for this toy company? Now I'm doing this for Beeline. And who's Beeline? And then they looked me up and, what do you do? And how much money do you make a year? And where's your office? And it's like, okay, how many employees do you have? And all that kind of stuff. And there was one guy working out of my condo.
Hello, Beeline Creative. Yes,
Yeah.
can I speak with Brandon? Absolutely, I'll get him in just a moment.
Yeah,
Hello.
pretty much. Well,
Yeah.
that's the scary thing with the big companies.
Mhm.
You got to hit certain numbers, and you got to, it's like, oh, well, how much are you going to make this quarter, and next quarter, and third quarter? And if you don't hit those numbers, why didn't you hit those numbers? And it's a tough. It can be grueling at times, but so certain licenses work better than others, and in our real market, we appeal to a lot of different people, but our real market, we do the Tiki shows because I'm into that, and we've got the pop culture fan base that goes crazy for it, and that's kind of opened up their eyes to Tiki culture. And,
Yeah.
and it's an interesting. It's been a good ride. It's
Yeah.
been fun.
And going into this Tiki culture and the build, you already had the connections to get things started and going. And I'm thinking about kind of the slower build that you talked about. What was when did you first start vending? I know you said you were selling to friends.
I mean, very like grassroots. I was literally swap meet in Ventura, started selling my tikis. And then at that swap meet, someone told me about Tiki Central, found a community of people, and then found Tiki Oasis. Started selling at Tiki Oasis in 2004, I guess was the first
Mhm.
one, and have done everyone each year since then.
Yeah, and if you haven't seen Tiki Tony's booth at Tiki Oasis, it's because it's sold out in the first 15 minutes.
Wow, I don't know about that.
Mermaid pillow, I still want one of those. Bad. So how did you build your business through vending at events?
You know what? It was like with everything. It was like I just wanted to make the stuff that I kind of wanted and that I didn't see out there, and just putting my own voice on it. So there's so many cool Tiki things, and even when I got the Book of Tiki in like 2002 or 3, whenever that was, that inspired me again because I would see things and go, oh, I want to do that, but with this different twist on it. So I would kind of like round things out, make it a little more cartoony. I think that's the most important thing. Like if whatever you guys are going to do or whatever, it's like put your own voice on it. People want what you can do. They don't want to see you copying what anyone can do. And whether that's like making a product or whatever. And then that also kind of ties into like social media too, and like be who you are really. Obviously you can play up certain things, and I used to say like I lived in a beach shack on the beach, and I mean I still say it actually, and there's friends and people are like, you live in a suburb in a little house, like you don't live in a shack on the beach. I'm like, well, it's all part of the persona, but for the most part, being authentic
do have a
otherwise.
shack.
I do have a
Yeah.
shack, yeah.
No,
In the backyard.
in the backyard.
That he gets sent to when he's
Yeah, in the doghouse.
Yeah. That's interesting you talk about the authentic persona because that's something, so I've gotten a perception I got some really good branding done a while back and just recently had a rebrand. And it's very professional looking, and it's for me, and I just want to talk about some of the challenges of building your business too. When you have a brand sometimes it's hard to feel like you can be authentic because the first thing you're thought, okay, I have to make this video absolutely perfect, or I have to make these graphics and these things absolutely perfect. But very recently I started a live stream, something I'm doing now. Hello, live streamers. At the beach. Yeah.
It's live.
Uh-oh.
So I started a while back, actually inspired by Jason T. Smith. I started my own Facebook group, the B.G. Reynolds Tiki Bar, as an opportunity to interact with the community that was following what I was doing, and possibly, kind of see where it goes. And it's still in the see where it goes. When I got my 100th follower, I thought, let's celebrate by doing a live stream. So I let people into my tiki bar, just set up my webcam and did it on a Thursday night at 6 p.m., inconveniently the same time as Jason's weekly live stream. And, I was able to let go. Instead of thinking, okay, hi, I'm Blair Reynolds, the master of mixology, and from my ivory tower I cast upon you the expertise. You get to see my bald spot for 2 minutes while I try and find that one bottle of rum I didn't prepare. You get to see my children raid my tiki bar. But you get much more of a sense of who I am as a person, because B.G. Reynolds is the brand, but it's done by Blair. And I'm just, for all the branding, people imagine somewhere in the B.G. Reynolds offices in deep Portland, Oregon. They have a building. I tried leasing a building. They're very expensive. It's just me. It's me, and with the help of a few virtual assistants, and I go through a lot of third parties because I loved having employees, but they're very expensive, and it creates a whole different atmosphere once you've got employees and you've got people to take care of. And when I had cash flow issues and I wasn't able to make payroll, that deeply affected me because I believe in taking care of people. So unfortunately, after they were let go, I made a decision on how I was going to run my business. but it's that authenticity that I can bring to the brand and show people that, yes, I have a great, beautiful font and logo and nice character Tikis, but now you're in my home bar and we're just having a conversation. It doesn't have to be perfect. I don't have to be the master. It feels so much more like I'm a part of the community now. Anyway, that's just my little rant and joy about live streaming. And speaking of, Brandon, you work with a lot of brands. How does that?
It's crazy.
What's up?
It's crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm really, I mean, my team is very small.
Yeah.
Very small. But yeah, it's a lot to juggle.
Well, because you get a lot of people say, "Oh, Geeky Tiki's again, the massive office building full of hundreds of workers thinking
Yeah.
about the next trend they can jump on."
Yeah, I've got a really strong design team.
Mhm.
One guy. I got a 3D guy so I do, vending. I've got a great painter that's right down the street from me that helps us we do all the certain things that require certain levels of paint or whatever that are like our paint masters. And then, but it's a small group of people, packaging person, and
Mhm.
it's a small team of us, but we deal with these mega brands.
Yeah.
And we've got so many licenses now, so many fun stuff coming out, so it's exciting.
Yeah, but like I say, people have the imagination that Geeky Tiki's is this giant force of, I know I'll always talk about this, and I'm sorry I always bring it up, but sometimes you get some negative feedback or concern that you're widening the Tiki audience too far. But like we talked, we had Trader Brandon here, and what's that? Oh no, wait, excuse me. Actually, excuse me, messing up my Disney Tiki people. Kelly Merrill. If you don't know, does anyone know who Kelly Merrill is? Bartender at Trader Sam's at the Disney Resort. And he said, they get flack about, Trader Sam's isn't true Tiki. They're not using the freshest lime juice. They don't make their syrups in-house. I make their syrups.
It's a good account.
It's Disney's good business. But how many people, who here went to Trader Sam's as one of their first Tiki bar experiences? I mean, Disney has a big audience. And through the power of Disney, the Tiki bar has expanded, and the audience has expanded. And, it's kind of a concern, too, for kind of keeping Tiki alive. Back in 2002 or so, when we were just starting, it was maybe 100 people across the country. Tiki Central had maybe a few hundred members or so. It was a very small audience, and now, through the licenses, through Disney, through, other channels, we're starting to keep Tiki alive. And I think business, in that sense.
And introduce new people to it, that
Yeah.
are unfamiliar, so they're just like, they might buy a Flintstone mug, whether it's Tiki or not, depending on what people think. And then it's like, oh, cool, there's a Tiki bar in Decatur, Georgia. I'm gonna go to SOS.
Yeah.
And then it's their first time going there, and then they're like, oh, cool, they sell this mug. And, it's a fun, and I go to every chance I get. I go to a new city. It's like, oh, where's the Tiki bar? I was in Nashville last week. It's like, there's nothing in Tennessee.
Really?
Nothing. That's a great place anybody out there lives in Tennessee, and great place to open up a Tiki bar. But a lot of honky tonks.
Honky Tonk Tiki Bar?
Honky tonk Tiki. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
There's already, in Louisville, Kentucky, there's an all-bourbon Tiki bar called A Bar. I can't remember the name, sorry.
I'm a purist. I only drink my Tiki drinks with rum.
Yeah. Well, we can just throw a little sugar in there. We'll just say it's from that. Something I wanted to bring out, and for all the people who are out here, is to talk kind of when I say stepping out from behind your brand and being authentic, there's a lot of challenges in the Tiki audience. There's still not a ton of Tiki people. There's a lot more than there used to be, I think, through that. But I want to talk about, Jonathan, what are some of the challenges you've had with horror and clay and bringing that out to an audience?
Well, I mean, part of what we've been talking about is staying true to your voice. Not everybody, like if I threw a horseshoe and just tried to create something just for tiki people or just for horror people or anything like that, I would probably miss. You sort of discover who your audience is, and it's not always who you think. So a lot of the challenges, particularly at first, like I got some people that were like, "That's not really a tiki mug." I'm like, "Well, but it's my tiki mug, and it's a horror thing." I did not know, for example, that there is a huge contingent of bloody murder-loving librarians who will collect my mugs. Like Teacher Appreciation Day, like I see a spike in sales because people are like, "I've got to get this for this teacher. She's 50 and has 3 cats." And
Yeah, you do tiki mugs based on Edgar Allan Poe poems, so.
it's a fair cop. It's, but it's what I love. It's what I'm passionate about, and there are challenges with that. And I mean, we're a 2-person shop. My wife and I do all of the projects that we do. It's out of my house, and people think that we're much bigger than we are. So one of the challenges is you have to do all of the things that need to be done, whether you want to or not. Like, I guarantee you, I do not want to go home and pack however many boxes I'm going to have to pack when I get off the plane back in Atlanta. I don't know how many boxes that is. Hopefully it's a lot. And I look forward to packing your box. But it's got to be done,
Yeah.
Like, oh, I'm out of handouts to put in the boxes. I got to go run off some more handouts to put in the boxes. Like, you gotta dot the I's and cross the T's, and be kind. And sometimes you have to. You've got an order. You get a case of mugs that you send somewhere that then somebody plays football with, and you got to make good on that because. First and foremost and secondary, you have to respect people. You have to be nice. And you have to have fun with it and conduct yourself professionally. And you have to learn what that means for you, and that's a huge challenge.
What do you mean by that? I'm curious.
Well, like, so if you have somebody, you do a limited glaze mug, and somebody buys it, and they're like, "I hate this," and you're like, "Why'd you buy it?" and what is my make good on "I hate this"? Well,
Yeah.
what does that mean?
Well, because at the end of the day, you want the customer satisfied. They gave you money, and they
Yeah.
want to be pleased.
And sometimes the best you can do is you give it back, and I'll give you your money back. And sometimes they're still mad, and you're like, well. How did customer service is fascinating, especially if you're an introverted designer that wants to draw stuff. You have to learn all this. You have to learn all these other skills.
Something I wanted to key in on when you talk about just having to do things. I approached a few years back. I started approaching major retailers about carrying BG Reynolds syrups. A lot of people ask me about, how do you get into? Are you in Bevmo and Kroger and Fred Meyer? So I started approaching them, and I started doing the rounds, and then they would say like, "Okay, yeah, you can absolutely. We're very interested. You have to sign up for this service. It's $800 a year, and then they hand you this service. It's for grocery and retail. Are you familiar with One World
I
Sync?
sold to Kroger once. Yeah, it was horrible.
This is a system that is designed for giant offices where 10 people sit in an office filling out freaking forms, and you're one guy trying to balance childcare, a day job, and okay, I submitted all the nutritional information in the format that they want, and they wanted 4 different sides of it, and with the images named, and it's a challenge because people say, well, why can't I get this product conveniently to me? Because it's a nightmare. And along with that, sometimes I'm still a small shop. I do make a lot more product than I used to, but I have a lot of growth challenge. What'll happen is I'll produce some product, and this is and I'm going to complain about cash flow because right now I have $60,000 in magical future money that should be coming in the mail any day. Sometimes like I'll get a massive order, and I'll just have to say, it's gonna be a few weeks unless you wanna pay up front, because I have to pay my production facility in order to make the products to sell. And if I don't have the money to spend on that because I'm waiting on checks to come in and clear, it can really stunt your growth in trying to expand. You know, and it's sad because I want my products conveniently available to everyone, and thank goodness for Amazon, so at least it's somewhat better. If you like a box of good-smelling glass shards.
And who doesn't?
Yeah. But, you know, growth from a small business to a big business can be a major challenge. You know, I'm curious, you know, what do you see as the future of Tiki Tony? Is this something that you do until you're whittling on your front porch at 80?
I would hope so. Like kind of what you guys were talking about with the Kickstarter. I started doing pre-sale mugs. It was the only way to do a bigger number of run of mugs, which it's challenging too because it all comes down to customer service and like talking to people, and they have to kind of trust you. And more than anything, like I don't really want to sell mugs. I don't want to sell anything. I just want to make people happy. So anytime someone's not happy with like a glaze or whatever, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, here, take this. Here's Violet, take her. Like, anything I could do to make people
No.
happy, and
My wife would refuse, sorry.
I think that's a super important thing that I've kind of discovered, and I didn't realize. Like, I just wanted to be an artist, like you were saying, but you end up dealing with things like that. So, but the future, I love designing things. I love making things with my hands. I like a variety of it too. So I hope to kind of keep expanding where I can just more design things, have them made, and then also have my handmade things that I'm still doing. Because that's like a therapy for me. When I'm stressed or whatever, if I can't go out and go surfing, if I can get into my shack and carve things and, you know, work with power tools, like it centers me. And I think that's another thing too about doing everything at once and taking care of kids. You got to find stuff that kind of centers you. Otherwise, you'll go crazy if you're like, I'm sure you guys all like me are working until you fall asleep at night on your phone, and then the phone falls on you, and you wake up and you're like, oh God, I didn't finish that email to so and so. And
Yeah.
I guess that's the challenge of a small business, and I'm sure some of you guys know it. So.
Oh, absolutely. I have, you know, I always say, every time I have to go out to make a delivery or go pick up product or go into a meeting, I'm going to come back and there's going to be 15 things in my email inbox, some of them on fire, some of them a little less on fire, but always important. And it's tough because, you know, for me, being a family man, I still have that like 50s family. Dad comes home and relax. No, Dad comes home and I got to sit in the driveway for 30 minutes responding to all the things.
Same here.
And then I have to go to I'm old, so I like to sit down at a computer to write my emails because I like to think and research. You know, and that's a lot of the challenge too. It's not always transactional. Sometimes it's, you know, it's a challenge. So things, you know, being an entrepreneur, things just come at you that you never expect. I can't tell you how many freaking local and federal governments like, oh, you didn't file your 941s. What's a 941? Okay, well, I got to learn something new today. And you owe this much in taxes. Maybe if I throw this letter away, I don't.
This is live streamed, right?
Yeah, it doesn't work that way. Yeah. You know, there's just a lot of challenges with being an entrepreneur and with business that are far, even beyond the customer service and the product you're developing. Business is it's like it's a science. It's you're walking into this world of, you know, transactional regulations, and it's fun. The fun side of things, like filling out giant Kroger forms. Yeah, it's a challenge, and it really takes a lot out of you, and you have to kind of learn new skills. Yeah, web development, you know, Adobe Illustrator. Yeah, what are some new skills that you guys have developed over the years that you never thought you'd have to?
Biggest one for me was just shipping things out. Like, I hated shipping stuff. Like, order comes in, I'm like, yeah, someone bought something. I'm like, oh, I gotta package this thing. So I like wrap it in bubble wrap. I like do, like you were saying, put the cards in, put a swizzle, do this, and I'm like, it took me an hour to pack one box. So I'm like, this is ridiculous. I can't do this. So my wife, we got a Kickstarter project sent to us in the mail. It was from Screen Novelties. They did a cool Tiki mug thing. And we saw it was shipped from a shipping center. And we're like, oh, there's people out there that would do this. So we called all around and finally found a UPS store that was local and took care of that. It's a little bit more expensive. And I just tell customers that, like, it sucks, but it's $20 to ship this box. And people so far have been okay to pay. And that, thank God, like, finding them saved me. Like, there's no way I would have been able to scale up and sell like my box sets and the mugs at the scale we are. I couldn't package that many. I'm horrible at it, and I'm never going to be good at it. So I had to find someone who was willing to do it. So I guess that would be it. Finding people who can do stuff better than you.
That's a definite, just like you say you've got painters and.
Yeah, I used to do all the artwork. I mean, I'm an artist by trade, graphic designer, and now it's like, okay, I work with best artists I know, all toy, guys from that I worked with in the toy industry, and then packaging people, but there's still times where it's like, oh, so and so is sick or not available, and I designed a package on the plane ride for a new mug we're doing that's coming out soon, and it's like I did it on the plane ride because I didn't have somebody to do it. But usually it's tough getting good people. But I've got a good team, but that's a challenge.
Yeah.
As you're growing and capacity issues and how many mugs, it's like all sorts of stuff. We had an opportunity recently with, you guys know Box Lunch, that store. It's one of my favorite stores. We sell a lot of stuff to them. But we did this amazing, they're doing this huge Scooby-Doo promotion now, and it's like killing me because I look at the Instagram and it's like all these Scooby-Doo products. And we did this really cool Mystery Machine Tiki bowl that you drink out of.
I've seen the pictures. It's so cool.
Sick. And so we did it, and it had the Mystery Machine. It came with 2 shot glasses, Shaggy and Scooby that sit in the front seat. And so you get a purchase order from Box Lunch. It's like, oh, we'll take X amount of them, and we need it by today, essentially. And then we run into issues with the molds, and we can't, physically, like the Mystery Machine looked great on paper.
Yeah.
And then when we started sculpting it looked great. And then, we had the windows that were like see-through, and it just unfortunately didn't structurally work out. After the mold, things got kind of warped, and I was like, well, I'm not shipping that.
Yeah.
So we had to reconfigure it, and then all that stuff needs to go back to Warner Brothers for approval, which takes time.
Yeah.
And so non-licensed stuff is the best, because then there's a whole other layer you're not doing. But like that's a challenge, because we had a great product that we were excited to launch, and we couldn't get it done in time. And then we missed the window of the Scooby-Doo program that they're doing. So next year we might be selling our Scooby-Doo Mystery Machine here, but we didn't get it into Box Lunch.
Yeah.
But maybe some of you guys will want it. So we're that could be a challenge, figuring things out and getting it done in time, and we're doing it. Yeah, that's the toughest thing.
I've always thought, if only I could drink out of a 70s conversion van.
Wait till the Batmobile comes out too. We're working on 66 Batman. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I saw the Cesar Romero.
We've got those coming out too.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're doing a lot of the retro classic Batman stuff.
Yeah. So something I'm curious about that I'm sure we've all seen, what are, like Jonathan, you've talked about the challenges of putting out your vision to a niche audience. Do you get the people who just say, you bringing Cthulhu to a Tiki Mug convention easy? What is this even? How do you explain?
I mean, I don't know. No, part of what we do with each of our mugs is we envision it as a collection. So they all sort of interrelate and help tell the story of each mug and collection itself. I do find that people that don't know the underlying literature or whatever, I do have to explain a little bit. And some of the marketing stuff that I keep on my table helps tell that story in a way that people can pick up real quick. To help bring them in on the discovery. But it's been now people know me and they're like, oh, this guy reads too much, and they kind of expect it, so they're looking for the story and they're looking for the joke. But you do have to try. Some people you educate, and some people just don't get it, and they're not gonna, and that's cool. That's okay. But the niche audience has been real nice to us. Like I've met friends that I'm gonna have forever in the last 6 years. It is the single, like since going to college, it's the single largest group of people that I've met is Tiki and cocktail enthusiasts. And they're like, yeah, sure. I mean, it's weird. I never thought about it, but yeah, I can enjoy this, and that's all I want.
And you reached out to a different niche too. We're talking about expanding audiences with your Pallid Mask Kickstarter. You had, I believe, a playable pen and paper RPG.
Yep. Because I am, before I was a literature geek, a tiki geek, anything of the sort, I was a role player. And so, like my first mug, somebody said 1d6 sand loss per sip, which I thought was hilarious. And so I was like, well, I got this buddy that was my dungeon master when I was in college, and he and I were talking, and he is now an editor for role-playing games. So he's like, well, let's write a module. So we started writing a module, and the module's expanded and expanded. And people have responded to that. There are people here. There are people that came up to the table and were like, "Are you running the module this weekend? Can I come play?" And I was like,
Are we?
I wanted to say yes so bad.
Hold on, I'll roll for initiative.
Oh, be your authentic self. It's more fun.
Yeah, that's the thing too. You find the like-minded people. For me, I have a huge challenge presenting syrups to a market where a lot of people make their own syrups. It's particularly when I'm talking with craft bartenders, I like to call it the rose-tinted glasses that we look on the past with, where yes, Don the Beachcomber bought his syrups from a local syrup maker. It's in Jeff Berry's books. There is this kind of rose-tinted vision of the past that a lot of the craft bartenders say, oh yes, they only use the finest spirits, and they use the cheapest shit that they could sell, because they're business people. I mean, we're not all like selling cheap shit. But sometimes it's a challenge because, and so many people, for me, a lot of people make their own house-made syrups, and that's kind of the way they're going to be. And I wish BG Round was in every tiki bar, but I'll take the Trader Sam's business for as long as I can. And that can be a difficulty. Some people just aren't going to use your products or buy your products because I'm sure there's people who look at your stuff and say like, I'm sure I could pull up some Tiki Tony stuff.
Sure, I've seen plenty of those copies out there.
Well, and especially since over the years your style, like it took a while, but it definitely locked into like this is the Tiki Tony piece, and now just like Shag produced a number of artists that do very similar illustrations. Now we're starting to see the birds just like yours, and that's actually, I think, have any of you had that issue with people trying to duplicate your product or duplicate your brand? I've heard of a lot of eBay, like seeing things on eBay of existing Tiki mugs.
There's one company on
Mondo? Maybe. I've got actually a Portland-based syrup producer that just looked at my line and said, okay, I have the only Rich Demerara syrup on the market, until suddenly there was another Rich Demerara syrup on the market. It's like,
it's interesting, you have success with like Star Wars tikis, and then all of a sudden, or after you go to these shows and people sneaking around your booth at Tiki Oasis, and then something comes out, and it's like, oh, that photography looks very familiar to the photography I did. And oh, that packaging is starting to look very familiar to the packaging that I did. Yeah, so there's those challenges.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the goal is first to market and get a fan base that likes your stuff. And there's other stuff that's popping out, not a lot of it, but you know, it's like when people see my stuff now, they're like, oh, that's a geeky tiki, and I got a certain look, and although my mugs go from this size to this size to, you know,
Shot
we do
glasses.
little shot glasses. It's our brand, and yeah, there's always going to be those people kind of
Yeah.
nipping at your coattails or how their heels or
I
whatever.
want a percentage of, I want a slice of your piece of the pie. My piece of the pie is like a crumb. Go do your own thing, man. You know, but that's going to happen. Sometimes imitation is, you know, the sincerest form of flattery, but seriously, stop taking my customers.
I will say too, on that note, like the Tiki community is like a pretty tight-knit community, so like there have been like slight copies of my stuff, and I didn't have to do anything. Like the Tiki community kind of like, you know, stamped out those fires. They were like, hey, you can't be doing that. That's too close to, I've seen it with other artists. So it's this, the Tiki world is a lot different, I think, than most businesses. And I'm sure it's tougher for you because you're going the pop culture route, so it's much bigger. But Tiki specific, it helped. You know, it was like a family.
Yeah, because the Tiki community is the most wonderful, generous, handsome, and intelligent community that knows to purchase B.G. Reynolds syrups when they're making their finest cocktails. I'm being told that we are down on time, so we have time for a few short questions from the audience, if anybody would like to ask. And then she's asking for tips about Kickstarter for the live streamers.
Make sure you know to put in overage for your taxes. Make sure you plan to fail or succeed, because nothing is quite as disappointing as doing really well and filling up all your levels and then going, I could be doing better if I'd planned properly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mine
Yeah.
failed, my first one.
Oh,
I only
really?
did one, yeah.
Oh, was
and
that-
it was for Senor Shaker.
Senor Shaker.
Anybody, we did this cocktail shaker.
you
that
needed
had
a theme
mustache
song.
and a sombrero on it.
His name is Senor
It was amazing.
Shaker.
And
He's a cocktail maker.
it was great, but I didn't know what the hell I was doing.
I just live streamed that. I'm sorry.
It's okay, it's okay. But yeah, I would take some tips from these guys, and if I ever went that route again. So it's fun. It's a cool video.
Yeah, the Kickstarter scared me, so I just did pre-sale through my website, and it was like whatever people pre-sold, we made. So I kept it small and then slowly increased.
Yeah, that's the one tip for Kickstarter is first have a giant audience. First build a mailing list of at least 3,000 people, and then try to, and that's honest.
That's
Build your community first. When I was first built, I didn't come into it and say I'm going to make a cocktail ingredients business. I just went to Tales of the Cocktail and hung out, and you know, I had made some homemade bitters and I handed a few out to, you know, people and just saw the reactions. And it's like when you're going to go join a new community. You don't come in and say, I am me and I will do these wonderful things. No, you just go in and be your authentic self and make connections and make friends. It's building a community before you build a business, really.
yeah.
Jason, sorry. Oh, okay, sir. Mhm.
Yeah, we're at Comic-Con next week. And,
So that's
I mean,
asking for,
Yep. That's a challenge for me. 'Cause
for cross promotion and marketing.
Yeah,
I gotta tell the live streamers they can't hear the audience.
Gotcha. Yeah, we're kind of all over the place, and it's like we're in this void this weird space where it's like we fit in with some of the Tiki stuff that we're doing with the Tiki audience. We fit in with the toy people because it's a collectible. We fit in with, like you said, the Rockabilly show. I mean, it's like so many shows and so many things to do. Comic-Con's a big one for us. But, yeah, we team up with bloggers, and there's been great people within the Tiki. I mean, gosh, I don't know how many of our Star Wars mugs have been sent to different. Rory, you guys have success with Star Wars every May 4th. but there's so much of that has come from like Jason Alexander's bar, and I mean, so we're May the 4th, and everyone's seeing it, and the blog sites, and people like Just Gen Recipes that does Star Wars cookies, and they're doing something with their cereal monsters, and so we'll send sets of mugs out, and we'll get people to jump in, and you've done, I don't know how many recipes for us that we worked on together.
I know, I'm still waiting to get my, I just need to get the Frankenberry, and then I'm coming out with some,
I
based
owe
on
you
classic
some
milk
cereal.
punches.
Don't eat it. It's not going to taste that good.
You should have seen what happened to 6 pounds of circus peanuts when I was testing.
Yeah.
They didn't go on the recipe.
But teaming up with reaching out to all these different, I reach out to mixologists and recipe and food bloggers and all sorts of people to just kind of help get the name out there.
I mean, budget's always a huge one. I've had a lot of luck sort of going in curves. Like, we're going to sponsor, like I found out about Jake the Alligator Man event up here a couple years ago, and I was like, yeah, we'll sponsor the Bride of Jake burlesque competition a little bit, like, if you just try and do, you want to cross the T's and dot the I's, but anything that exposes you to a new audience and gives you an opportunity to make new connections and make new friends, like, will grow your network, which will over time help you market and promote. Because it's like for a while, like we do Dragon Con. This is it's our 6th year of business. This is the first Tiki convention that I've been to, partially because we don't travel out of the Southeast very much. And the reason that we came out here is I made a lot of friends out here over the last couple of years. And, we know where we send a lot of mugs, and we know where we get a lot of people to interact with. I don't know what it is about the Pacific Northwest that makes people like monsters, but there's something. And so, also, if you're going to be marketing in bars and places where people drink a lot, I highly recommend waterproof business cards.
Good call. Jason.
Yeah.
Jason T. Smith, you had a question.
Well, so I have a Facebook group of 50,000 members.
The thrifting board.
The thrifting board, and after you said, oh, we're not going to do Golden Girls Tiki mugs, I put it out there real quick. I said, ooh, look like Golden Girls Tiki mugs. Here are the responses. Shut up and take my money. Can this happen by Christmas? I would. Absolutely. Shit, take my money now. Please tell me this is going to happen. I would. Who wouldn't? You definitely better get on that because, and the people.
Can it happen before Christmas is a solid
No.
maybe.
But the range is 30-year-old women
Yeah.
to 75-year-old women. I've got a punk rock guitarist who's like, I will buy a set right now. One of my admins said I'll buy 2 sets. People, when you said no, I'm like, oh no, he's missing the boat on this one. So absolutely, I'll put you in my group so you can see all the responses.
If only Disney wasn't tied to that license.
Yeah.
A lot of these licenses are
wait.
a lot more affordable.
Does that mean the Golden Girls are Disney princesses?
There you go.
Yes!
Oh my god.
My daughter,
That's funny.
it's Elsa and Mulan and Blanche.
Sophia.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you so much for coming to the symposium.
Thank you.
We've got Martin Tomino with Angostura with the Art of the Swizzle coming up next. Thank you so much to the panelists, Jonathan Chaffin of Horror and Clay, Brandon Giraldez of Beeline Creative and Geeky Tikis, Tiki Tony Murphy.
Thank you.
Of Tiki Tony Murphy.
Tiki Tony is the last name?
You weren't supposed to reveal that.
Oh, it's the captain.
I'm kidding.
And I guess thank me.
Thank
you all.
Thank you guys.